You're listening to Simply the Best Sports Take, the best podcast breaking down the best stuff in sports with host Sean Bingham. His takes are so good, he dropped the mic, but then you wouldn't be able to hear him, and that would suck.
Welcome into STB Sports Take, Simply the Best Sports Podcast. I am your host, Sean Bingham. Thank you for being here. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor Podcasts. Everywhere you get your podcasts, we are there. Please hit that subscribe button as usual. That is my request. Share this podcast with your friends who like sports. Obviously, today we're going to talk NBA free agency. A lot of stuff going on. This is the time of year where things start to slow down a little bit. NFL and college football haven't started up yet. NBA finals just ended. There's a little bit of a lull. You know, baseball season's obviously in full swing. But if you're like me, baseball season's not very exciting until the end of the season when the pennant races start. Playoff seedings are like hanging in the balance, and then the playoffs themselves start. So tennis tournaments, golf tournaments, they're fun, but they're not. They don't make for the best podcast. Discussion always. But NBA free agency does. So we're gonna talk a lot about that. Before I get into that though, funny story. I don't have a ton prepared today, and here's why. Last night, I decided to go canyoneering, something I like to do quite a bit, with some friends, and we made a very big error. We forgot a piece of equipment we needed to be able to get the rope down to proceed to rappel after rappel, because you fasten the rope at the top, and it's very secure as you are coming down that strand of rope. But to be able to pull the rope back through the anchor at the top and pull it down to you, you need what's called a pull cord, and we forgot that. Really, really stupid. We had one in the truck and left it. There's actually an extra rope in the truck, thinking we had everything we need in the bag. Really dumb mistake. Luckily, it was a pretty chill canyon. I think that's why we were pretty lax in our preparation. Big mistake, but a mistake that would not have been made on a bigger canyon, that's for sure. So we had cell service. We were able to get to a safe spot. We had to have people come rescue us because we got stuck halfway down. Because we couldn't get the rope down. So the rope's just hanging on the mountain right now. But anyway, because of that, I got home very late, got to bed very late, and woke up late. And then I've been spending all morning answering questions of people wondering what happened and how it happened and blah, blah, blah. So I got way behind on my preparation. I've got work stuff I got to get to, but I want to get a podcast out. It will be good. That's a funny story to get it started. I was helicoptered out of a canyon last night with some friends. So, okay, moving on. So now we got to talk Kyrie Irving. We got to talk the NBA. There's all sorts of stuff going around. And I had an interesting idea for the podcast, by the way. I'm trying to find like the best niche. And if you've been following for a while, you know that I just love to talk about the NBA and the NFL. Those are my two biggest passions. I do like college sports. I'm not some diehard college sports guy. I just love professional sports more. They're just better. They're better athletes. Everything about it to me is better. And so I will occasionally get into college sports, the local ones, BYU, Utah, things like that, and then the national level stuff as well. But it's always going to be secondary to the NBA and the NFL. And so I had the idea of, I know that my competition as a podcaster in that regard is definitely like Fox Sports and ESPN. Like thank you guys for listening, because I realize that like you've got tons of people on the professional level that are talking about these same things. So I thought if you're listening and you can tweet at me at Sean Bingham, or you can comment on the YouTube. I would love to know if you guys watch First Take on ESPN, or First Things First on Fox Sports, or Colin Cowherd on Fox Sports, or Undisputed on Fox Sports. Those are some shows that I really like around the horn. There's a bunch of them that I like on ESPN and Fox Sports. I'm wondering if you guys watch those, and if you do, if you're like me, you would find yourself frequently arguing back with the hosts of those shows. Maybe you do that with mine even, and I hope you do. And I thought, would it be interesting to have my takes on this podcast in response to their takes on those shows? Would that be an interesting niche? I don't know. You guys tweet at me, text me if you have my number for those friends of mine that listen, or you can comment on the YouTube. So if you don't have my number, thank you guys especially for watching and listening, but you can comment on the YouTube. You can tweet at me at Sean Bingham and let me know if you think that'd be a good idea. But getting into the Kyrie Irving stuff, this is very interesting. Kyrie Irving is demanding essentially a max contract extension with the Nets, okay? And there's all these rumors that if the Nets don't acquiesce to this request, that he's going to bounce and therefore maybe KD would want to leave as well, because all of a sudden Kevin Durant would be like, I came here to win a championship with Kyrie. We ended up getting James Harden. Now we have neither of those guys. Like, I'm out. It's clearly the last few years of Kevin Durant's prime. He's even not been super healthy for several years in a row now. So who knows what that's going to look like. But could the Nets lose all these guys? Like, would this not be the biggest disaster of a super team assembly in the history of super teams? They lost Harden. They're on the verge of losing Kyrie, and if they lose Kyrie, they'd be on the verge of losing Kevin Durant. I mean, it would just be catastrophic. So the big question is, should the Nets pay Kyrie Irving just to keep Kevin Durant? And it's kind of funny because clearly Kyrie Irving is not worth it. The Nets know that. They're telling him that. Like, dude, you don't play. You don't lead to wins. I don't know if they're telling him that, but they are. They're not directly telling him that, but they're indirectly telling him that with the contract offer they're giving him, which is, I think, like 2 years at the max salary. But he wants 5 fully guaranteed. And they're like, dude, you sit out more games than you play. So to me, I got to say this. This is a big statement, and I truly mean it. I think Kyrie Irving is one of the most overrated players in the history of the NBA. And I mean that wholeheartedly. There is so much hype around this guy because of the Uncle Drew stuff, the crazy ball handling. He's a phenomenal scorer. He's very, very talented at basketball. But he is insanely overrated. Insanely overrated. Just look at the record of his teams through the last several years since he left LeBron. The Celtics and the Nets both are essentially exactly the same with or without him. The Celtics were actually better without him than they were with him on the court. The Nets are basically identical with him and without him, and he sits out more games than he plays. Where's the value there? There's no value there. Kyrie Irving is insanely overrated. He's a monstrous distraction. He's a total diva. The comments he makes about, like, well, me and Kevin are going to run this franchise. We're going to make some decisions, and me and Kevin don't need a coach. Like, year after year, it's some massive statement just flipping the bird to leadership. Don't need a coach. Don't need management. Don't need ownership. We're running the show. No, you're not, dude. And if you are, you're doing a horrendous job. You got swept in the first round of the playoffs by your former team who got better when you bailed. I mean, to me, Kyrie Irving is not worth it at all. If I'm the Nets, I would honestly look to potentially trade both of those guys. I would beg and plead for Kevin Durant to stay. I would trade Kyrie. I would absolutely trade Kyrie. Do the sign and trade if you can. And then I would talk to Kevin Durant and be like, look, dude, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get everything back for Kyrie that we possibly can. And you could probably get something pretty decent for him because he's overrated and people out there value him. Maybe it's because he sells tickets. I don't know. But for those fans out there, this dude doesn't lead to wins. Like, it is so thoroughly proven. He does not lead to wins. You're going to win as many games with him as you're going to win without him. He's just going to look flashy and cool, and therefore you think you must have him. But you don't. Outside of LeBron, he's not won anything ever. He couldn't make the playoffs before LeBron got there, although he was super young, so we'll cut him some slack. Couldn't do anything before LeBron got there, and when LeBron got there, they immediately were good. They did win a title. He was a key piece of that, but he had LeBron freaking James on his team leading the way, and he was young and impressionable and more coachable. Now he's this mega diva who has a lot of weird ideas, doesn't seem to care much about basketball, sits out more than he plays, takes time off just because he needs it. He's operating on like the unlimited PTO platform. It's just super weird. Everything about what he does to me is off. He's not a team player. He's not a guy that I would want on my team. He's not. So if I'm the Nets, I do a sign and trade, get the pieces back that we can, and then you try and prove to Kevin Durant in that sign and trade, because Kevin Durant's locked in for several years with the Nets right now. Obviously, he could request a trade, and at his level of stardom, they'd probably grant it. But they don't have to. So they could say, look, KD, this is what we got back. You've got Ben Simmons. Hopefully Ben Simmons, if you're a Nets fan, hopefully Ben Simmons can get over these mental health issues and actually play. Because when he plays, Ben Simmons is a little overrated. I've mentioned that a bunch on the podcast. But he's still a heck of a player. Like, he's a phenomenal defender, and he's a great facilitator. He's just a horrible, horrible shooter. And he's a bit of a head case himself. But assuming he can get over the head case issues and play, You add a guy like one of the things I heard mentioned. So Kyrie has this wish list, right, of teams he'd want to go to. The Lakers are on there, the Knicks, which obviously he loves being in New York, being, where he grew up. So that's why he loves the Nets. So he put the Knicks on the list because he can stay where he's at. He put the Lakers and the Clippers on there because they're in LA, big city. He can kind of live that cool lifestyle. They're also championship ready in his mind if he joins them. He put the Mavericks on there. That's not going to happen. But he put the Miami Heat on there. And one of the guys I think that is wildly underrated is Tyler Hero. So imagine if you are the Nets and you think you can get Tyler Hero for Kyrie Irving, and you'd actually get another piece as well. You'd probably get maybe like a Bam Adebayo or, I don't know, somebody like that. To me, if you're a Heat fan, just stay far, far away. Don't do it. Maybe Kyrie with Jimmy Butler could work. I doubt it. I think they'd butt heads. But maybe Jimmy Butler could be a LeBron-type leader to him. But Kyrie just thinks he's better than everybody. That's the issue. But if you're a Nets fan, you want this. Kevin Durant with a facilitator like Ben Simmons and another good scorer and lights-out shooter from outside like Tyler Hero, who knows his role as your as your Robin to your Batman, right? He would understand that role, something that Kyrie struggles with. Tyler Hero with Ben Simmons at full strength, assuming he can get back to that mentally, and then Kevin Durant, that's a far better trio than Kyrie and even Harden and Kevin Durant. Chemistry is crucial. Don't underestimate chemistry, you guys. Like, the Nets have proven how important it is. The Lakers are proving how important it is. Chemistry matters. The Warriors are proving how important it is in a positive way. Those guys are less talented than the Lakers. They're less talented than the Nets, but they're winning championships even without Kevin Durant before and after him because the chemistry is so perfect. I think that a Tyler Hero, Ben Simmons, Kevin Durant chemistry could be that. Ben Simmons would know, okay, I've got 2 3-point shooters. I don't need to worry about it as much. I've got 2 scorers. I can go back to averaging 17 points a game like he's done his whole career, get his 8-9 assists, play some good on-ball wing defense, which would make up for some lack of defense on Tyler Hero's part, right? Because he's not the greatest defender. He's not horrendous, but he's not very good. But you've got a strong backcourt in those two, and then Kevin Durant is your clear alpha, your clear Batman. Like, there's no questions asked. Well, gosh, should Kyrie shoot? Should Harden shoot? Should KD shoot? No. It's KD. Every freaking time, it's KD. And if you need to be bailed out, Tyler Hero's fantastic bailout guy. So to me, if you could get Tyler Hero plus Bam Adebayo, oh my gosh, the Nets would be the favorites without question. I don't think the Heat would go for it. They'd be stupid to go for it. But there are people out there that really freaking want Kyrie Irving. I think there are also many out there that think he's overrated like I do. I think he's one of the most overrated players in the history of the game. But if you're a Nets fan, you should be begging and praying for that. And I think that one year, KD could show it. If he got Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero, he'd be like, yeah, I've got 3 guys. I can go get you 25 to 30. Tyler Hero's going to get you 20 to 25. Bam and Simmons are going to get you 15 to 20. Like, that's the chemistry you need. You'd have rim protection. You'd have another scoring threat and another outside shooter. You'd have a facilitator, and you'd have your superstar, Mr. Everything, and Kevin Durant. Like, the fit is perfect. So to me, if I'm the Nets, I look to do that because I think that you can actually accomplish your goal of getting rid of Kyrie and not having to pay him and also keeping Kevin Durant. And I think you get better in doing it. So that's my take on the Kyrie Irving situation. Damian Lillard posted an interesting thing on his Instagram story saying that, or he didn't say anything actually. He just posted a picture of him and Kevin Durant walking side by side in Blazers jerseys. So 2 things from that. If you're a Blazers fan, you got to be stoked on that. My buddy Chris Barrett, who's a diehard Blazers fan, he immediately texted me about it. And one thing you should be excited about if you're a Blazers fan about that is that Damian Lillard's posting himself in a Blazers jersey on his Instagram because there's obviously some real thoughts that he might want to leave because he wants to win. He's in the prime of his career. He's not getting any younger, and you want to win now. And so him posting a picture of himself in a Blazers jersey has to excite you. And then the thought of Kevin Durant going there, oh my goodness. But then it's like, how do you get him? Like, who are you trading away to get him? Like, the Nets have him under contract for years. Like, who on earth could the Blazers possibly give the Nets if it's not Damian Lillard that is going to be good enough for the Nets? Like, there's nobody. I mean, Kevin Durant is literally like one of 3 top guys in the entire league. I don't know who you possibly could get for him that someone would be willing to part with, because if you're just swapping superstars, are you getting that much better? Like, would the Bucks trade Giannis? No. Maybe the Lakers would want to swap with LeBron, but would LeBron want to go there? Like, it's tough to trade guys of that magnitude because they're so valuable. They're invaluable, and you've got them under contract for several years. So it's like, we're not gonna give you away. So I think Kevin Durant's in a rough spot. He's a superstar, so he could figure it out and demand. Maybe the Nets are in the rough spot. I don't know, but if I'm the Nets, I'm gonna be like, look, dude. We want to do you right, but we've also paid you tens of millions of dollars per year, and we haven't even won a playoff series. We got swept. Well, I guess they did win one last year, but we got swept in the first round this year, lost in the second round last year. Like, we paid you this to win a championship. We paid you like $40 million to not even play the first season. You just rehabbed. That was fine. The next 2 seasons, you played about 60% of the games. We didn't even reach a conference finals. That's fine. We just gave you a max extension. We're not giving all this up for nothing. It's not happening. Like, this is a business. It's not happening. That's the attitude the Nets need to have. With Kyrie Irving, it's like, dude, I'm looking at this thing. Kirk Goldsberry put up a graphic of games that Kyrie's played in and hasn't played in the 3 seasons in Brooklyn. He's not played in 118 games. He has played in 116. So he has sat out for 2 more games than he has played in. And almost none of those were injury related. They were taking time off because he wanted to. And then, of course, the vaccine issue, which I will respect Kyrie for sticking to his guns. But, dude, you haven't played in more games than you have played in. How on earth can you expect? And that's over 3 years. That's a large sample size. And then you take an even larger sample size and you have hard proof that teams are actually better without him or as good without him than as they are with him. So why pay a guy when he doesn't actually prove to be a difference maker when he even plays, which he rarely does? So he's wildly overrated. He's not worth it. The Nets need to do a sign and trade. I feel strongly about that. They need to do a sign and trade with anyone that they can where they can get some value back to help Kevin Durant win a title, because I don't think Kyrie's the answer. I don't. Kevin Durant is. I don't think Kyrie is. Maybe Kyrie goes back to the Lakers, but who are the Lakers going to give up? Maybe you reunite Kevin with Russell Westbrook. I don't know. That could be crazy because the Lakers want to get rid of Westbrook. And then you reunite Kyrie with LeBron. Wouldn't that be interesting? You reunite Kyrie with LeBron. You reunite Westbrook with Durant. And they battle it out, like a blast from the past. Maybe that happens. I don't freaking know. But if I'm the Nets, I'm looking at Miami. Hey, you're on his wish list, and we'd love Hero. Hero's stock is actually down because he had a poor playoff performance. You say, look, this Tyler Hero guy, 6th man of the year, he's not even a starter on your team, and he actually played really poorly in the playoffs. We'll take him. And, throw in another guy like, I don't know, I said Tyler Hero, like Bam Adebayo, who's an all-star, obviously. Maybe they can't get that good of a package. Probably not, but maybe you do. Maybe you get a Duncan Robinson who's also on the Heat and doesn't even play anymore. And he's a lights-out shooter. Totally underrated. Now, you are picking up 2 guys that are pretty bad at defense. So that's a little bit iffy. So you'd really be relying on KD and Simmons at that point to play really good defense. But to have a bunch of shooters and guys that just would know their role, I don't know. I like it. That's the opposite of what Kyrie does. It's what the Warriors do. It's what guys like Klay Thompson do and Draymond Green. That's why they're so good. Draymond's like, yeah, I'm going to go out there and just run around and play as tough as I can and annoy people and try to play good defense. Get 5 to 8 assists, try and get 8 rebounds. He's a triple single guy. I think he's overrated too, but at least he knows his role. His role is just to be out there and let other people shine. And I think that's what Kevin Durant needs. And he needs guys that can shoot around him. He needs guys that can facilitate and that understand their role. So that's my take on that. Okay, looking at my notes here, which there are a few of them. That's pretty much all I had, actually, was all that stuff. So I'm going to wrap it up with that. That's my take on Kyrie Irving. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the idea of me giving my takes on other people's takes if you're watching those shows. But please hit that subscribe button. Share this podcast. Kyrie is overrated. Share it. You guys, that is it. I am out. Peace. We got the strength. We got the
Thanks for hanging with Simply the Best Sports Take. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and check out STBSportsTake.com. Simply the best in sports.
'Cause we are